It was actually while watching a 1stman video that I first had the idea to start a YouTube channel. I got so excited about the ability to have that freedom, but more than that was the ability to have a voice and to express myself and to be able to help people who were struggling with some of the stuff that I may have struggled with myself at an earlier stage in my life. And I sat there thinking about that for like 2 whole years and didn't take any action on it. I sat there with a dream and did nothing to actually get there. To me, his concept of the great male filter is this idea that there is a small percentage of guys who, by the time they get to their 30s, actually have built the life that they genuinely and authentically want to live. Most guys have to compromise in one way or another, right? Like financially, maybe you're not making as much money as you want. Maybe your career you're not doing the thing that you genuinely love to do. You're kind of just chained to a desk and doing a job that you don't enjoy doing. Maybe you're in a relationship that you're not genuinely happy with. Maybe it's a little bit of everything. And it gets dark, dude. Like you see the divorce rates are skyrocketing. You see how many people are, at older stages of their life in their 40s, 50s, 60s who are in jobs that they genuinely don't enjoy doing. Now look, there's an element of luck associated with everything too. Like you can do everything perfectly and still end up getting kicked in the ass by life. But I genuinely believe that the actions that you take in your 20s will directly impact which category you fall into. This is the great male filter. Principle 1, in filth it will be found. So Jordan Peterson has a great lecture about the King Arthur story. I'll link it down below. He talks about how King Arthur and his knights are searching for the Holy Grail. This is the cup that Christ drank from in the Last Supper, and it represents the ideal of humanity, right? Like it represents the pinnacle, the point of perfection. So how did the king and his knights search for this Holy Grail? Well, they exit the castle at night, and they scan the forest individually. And they go into the forest by themselves at the point that scares them the most, the point that seems darkest and most terrifying to each of them individually. Symbolically, it means we're searching for perfection, searching for the ideal version of ourselves. We'll never find it, but we're searching for it by facing our fears, not just our fears, but the thing that is eating away at us the most, the thing that you know you need to conquer, but you just haven't because of fear. And so what does this mean for all of us? Well, close your eyes right now. Be honest with yourself. What is that one thing that drives that emotional response, that one thing that you know you need to be working on, but it really scares you? I can tell you what it is for me. I lived in Seattle before I moved here to Boston. This was about 4 years ago, and when I left, I had this really bad breakup. And I dealt with it about as unhealthily as humanly possible. Like I didn't tell a single person. I bottled up the emotions. I'm like, all right, you know what, screw it. Like that's in the past. I'm moving to a new city. Like let's just forget about it and move on. And it was very unhealthy. Like it definitely impacted my mental health. And the consequence of this was that I would date girls here in Boston after I got settled in and got my new place and all that. I started dating girls and I met girls that I had a good vibe with, and every time I would start feeling myself getting close, that's when I would have that emotional trigger, which I didn't even fully comprehend where it was coming from at the time because I had bottled that shit down so deep. But the reality is every time I felt myself getting close, my brain had this instinctual reaction of okay, well, last time I felt this way, I got hurt, so let's just avoid this. And I would push people away. And now look, I don't know what would have happened. Would I have married someone? Who knows? But at the end of the day, I did walk away from potential relationships that could have been very, very good multiple times. The last time it happened, I finally had this moment of reckoning. Now, I hadn't heard the Jordan Peterson story at the time, but it was kind of the same thing where it was all right, you know what? I've been doing self-improvement in other areas, and telling myself, I'm improving as a man and getting better. I was going hard on fitness, I was going hard on my career, and all of that was paying off. I was in better shape than I ever was, I was making more money, but there was that one thing that was eating away at me for so long, and it was this fear of commitment and things like that. And so I've spent a lot of time, I actually didn't date anyone for about 5-6 months and just spent a lot of time journaling and meditating and just dealing with the problems. I can go into a whole rant about how I did that. I think I'll save that for another time. Look, realistically, I don't know if I've fully gotten over this problem. I'm still probably going to be a little bit more hesitant to get into a new relationship than someone else who's maybe more willing to just jump in. But at the end of the day, what I do know is that after having worked on that stuff, I met this girl. We dated for, I think 4 or 5 months, and maybe not quite that, maybe it was 3 or 4 months, but The point is, I stayed way past that point of no return that I used to just jump ship, right? Like I started having feelings for her, and rather than getting scared, I actually like embraced it and accepted it and got excited about it. We ended up splitting up because we had like different like long-term visions for like what we wanted out of life. But the fact that I allowed myself to get close to someone like that for the first time in I guess 3 years at that point, it gave me that sense of like, you know what? I think I'm past whatever issues for the most part. I think I've made a lot of progress on it. I used to have this fear that like I would never actually be able to connect with someone because I was just like carrying around all this baggage. I don't have that fear anymore, right? Now, I'm not saying now I'm gonna just marry the first girl that like I have any sort of connection with, but at the same time, I am no longer afraid that I'm going to push someone away because I'm like carrying around pain from the past. While I was making tons of money and traveling the world and like building up my physique and all of that's good stuff. But that was the one thing that I knew I needed to like face. That was the darkest part in the forest for me. For you, whatever it is that you've identified as that key area that you know deep down you need to work on, the thing that you like, the darkest part in the forest, the thing that really scares you, the thing that you has been eating away at you, work on it, conquer it. Enter the forest at the part that scares you the most, conquer it, and then do the whole thing over again. You do that, honestly, you're gonna live a good life. Principle 2, results take time, so enjoy the process. I talked about my like early days of lifting in the last video. I genuinely believe that the only reason I stuck with it in the early days of like my first like few months of actually lifting weights consistently is because I had friends at the gym who pushed me and like, you know, got me motivated, and I was excited to show up mainly just to hang out with my friends. Like, I don't know if it's hard to say, but like, I don't know if I had the right attitude at that moment about 4 or 5 years ago at this point, where I would have stuck with it even if I was just going by myself and constantly putting myself in pain lifting weights. Like it's painful, and then you leave and you're sore. It's a tough thing, and you don't see results for like months at a time. That's the thing that's like, do you stick with it even though you're not actually getting results for several months? And that's the gym. Like, I think with the gym is like relatively quick on the like scale of like, this is how much effort you have to put in before you start seeing any sort of results. Whereas there are some other things like, you know, starting a business or learning a new skill that will eventually lead to getting a high paying job. There are some things where you have to invest like years at a time before you see any sort of gain, any sort of result. Now, in some cases, it's a lot more structured, where it's like, you know, if you want to be a doctor, for example, you do your 4 years and then you do your med school and then your residency and all this. It's like a very, very long period of time, but you kind of know that you have these checkpoints that you hit along the way. Whereas if you want to like start a business, for example, there's no like, okay, just do your 4 years and then you'll get it, right? It's like, it's a very long process, and it could happen tomorrow. Like, my channel could blow up with this video, who knows, maybe, but it might not. And if it doesn't, like, do you have the willpower and the determination? Like, do you want it bad enough to keep uploading? That's the thing that I think holds a lot of people back, especially on these more like entrepreneurial things. Sometimes with the gym as well. Like, if you start getting discouraged that you're not seeing the gains, some people are going to gain faster than you. And so what this all boils down to is that you need to enjoy the process of actually doing the things that are making you better, not the results, because the results will come with time if you actually enjoy the process. Principle 3, your health is an asset or a liability. Look, we all have different goals and different things that we're trying to accomplish, but at the end of the day, our health is one thing that we all have to invest in, and it's gonna get harder for each and every single one of us as we get older. Like, there's no getting around it. Some people have better genetics than others, but at the end of the day, for every single person, as you get older, your health becomes a bigger and bigger thing that you have to invest in, because it's harder to stay healthy the older you get. And the crazy thing is, whatever it is that you're actually trying to do, whether it's, I mean, maybe it is you're trying to improve your physique, you're trying to improve your fitness, but even if it's not, like, let's say you're trying to improve your dating life, your health is going to be a massive asset or a liability, a hindrance, depending on where you're at with that process, right? If you are super unhealthy, right? Like, we all know that guys have like very low testosterone these days compared to like 50, 100, 200 years ago. And one of the consequences of this is, if you're sitting there with low testosterone and you're trying to improve your dating life, but you don't have that like primal urge to get out there and like mate and reproduce and repopulate the world, what's going to motivate you to put yourself out there? What's going to motivate you to take social risks and like do approaches or like face rejection on like dating apps and stuff? What's going to motivate you to like get off your couch and like take a girl out on a date if you don't have that like instinctual drive? On top of that, like if you're living an unhealthy lifestyle and it shows in your face and your physique and all of these things, you're not going to be nearly as attractive as you could be. And that's going to dramatically hinder your results. Like, we all know this. Like, it's hard to admit sometimes, and like people don't like to hear it, but at the end of the day, the way you look absolutely matters when you're dating. Like, of course it does. Now, by the way, as we get older, this gets only more and more important, right? It's like, let's say you do the hard work and you build that fantastic career, you have a fantastic relationship, you have the relationship you want, all of this, and now it's time to start enjoying the rewards. But now you're dealing with chronic health issues, now you're dealing with back pain, and now you're dealing with all these things that are preventing you from doing the stuff that you wanted to do. Maybe you wanted to go and travel the world, but your health is holding you back. Right? So it's really one or the other. Like, your health can either really, really help you and accelerate everything, or it can actually really sandbag you and pull you back down. Dating, career, life setup, like all of these areas, it really does matter, and it gets harder to deal with this stuff the older you get. So invest in your health. It's very important. We all have to do it. It's only going to get harder as you get older. So make time as quick as possible. Get yourself in good shape. You're going to thank yourself later. I promise. That's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Peace out.